Promises made, promises kept, with President Trump taking immediate action on his top campaign focus, fighting illegal immigration.
The party is over. Chicago is one of the major homes of the hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants in the US, and nearly everyone is affected, because if not deported, they may be friends or families of those who are moving out. It's been a quiet, dreadful, and uncertain start of the year. The life in the neighborhood is almost gone. No one knows when it shall end. Chicago at the present. Chicago's been on edge ever since the presidential inauguration. Rumors had it that our city, a known sanctuary, might be the first to face immigration raids under Trump's mass deportation plans. And recently, things really kicked off with Operation Safeguard launching right here. ICE, teaming up with several federal agencies, announced enhanced targeted operations aimed at enforcing immigration laws while supposedly keeping public safety and national security intact. At this point, we still don't know exactly how many of those detained by ICE were truly dangerous or posed any real threat, the very group they claim to be after. What we do know is that ICE's harsh approach is stirring up a lot of fear in a city where undocumented immigrants play a vital role in the economy. And let's be clear, studies show that undocumented immigrants aren't any more likely to commit crimes than US citizens. It's easy to see why people are scared. One local resident, Alvarez Vasquez, told the Chicago Tribune that folks are staying home and even skipping work because they're terrified of being caught or deported. This growing fear is hitting Chicago's workforce hard. An analysis by the American Immigration Council points out that about 90% of undocumented immigrants in the metro area were of working age in 2023, the latest data available from the American Community Survey. In some sectors, the numbers are pretty striking. Nearly one-third of maids and housekeeping cleaners, 32.9%, construction laborers, 30.5%, cooks, 30%, and painters and paper hangers, 30%, are undocumented. Even among landscaping and groundskeeping workers, undocumented individuals make up 42.1% of the team. Looking at Chicago's construction industry overall, undocumented workers accounted for 15.6% of the labor force. That's almost 1 in every 6 workers. The story is similar in other fields too. Undocumented immigrants make up 13.5% of the manufacturing workforce, 11.8% in hospitality, think hotels and restaurants, 8.9% of wholesale trade workers, and 8.8% of those in general services like auto repair, barbershops, and laundries. Sam Sanchez, a veteran restaurateur and former chairman of the Illinois Restaurant Association, told Eater Chicago that the restaurant industry would literally collapse without these workers. He even suggested that the atmosphere of fear might soon push even those with legal status to avoid going out to work. Rebecca Shee, the executive director of the American Business Immigration Coalition, told the media that even employees with legal status don't want to be swept up, noting that deportation is a pretty blunt instrument. The effects are already visible. Some kids aren't attending school, and people are even skipping their medical appointments out of fear. How? Just last week, President Trump signed executive orders that let officials arrest immigrants in places we once thought were safe: schools, daycare centers, hospitals, shelters, and even places of worship. Trump isn't just going after those with criminal records or who pose a public safety threat. He's promised to deport millions of undocumented immigrants. According to the Washington Post, he's demanded that agents make 200 to 1,500 arrests per day, a huge jump from the several hundred daily arrests under the previous administration, and he's even threatened to hold ICE field managers accountable if they don't meet these quotas. Last week, ICE reported 956 arrests nationwide. After Trump's inauguration, the city began preparing for potential raids. The mayor and the Chicago Transit Authority started a Know Your Rights campaign, using about 400 digital screens throughout the city to share information in English, Spanish, and French. This campaign guided commuters to online resources about their legal rights if questioned or detained by ICE. These rights include the right to remain silent and to deny entry to ICE agents without a signed warrant from a federal judge. However, During the confusion of the past week, errors occurred. On the Friday before the raids, Chicago public school officials held a press conference to say they had prevented ICE agents from entering Hamline Elementary School, located in a predominantly Latino area. But ICE officials denied they had been at the school. Later, the Secret Service took responsibility, stating their agents were looking into a threatening TikTok post made by an 11-year-old student at Hamline. CPS officials later acknowledged that they had confused Secret Service identification for ICE badges. Here in Chicago, one of the first cities to be targeted, restaurants are already noticing fewer customers. It's not too surprising when you consider that immigrants make up a big part of the local consumer base. In 2023, the Chicago metro area was home to 1.8 million immigrants, with 27.2% of them undocumented. These households wielded $13.6 billion in spending power that year, money they spent on dining out, shopping, and other local services. That spending power came after these households paid a total of $4.2 billion in taxes, including $1.8 billion in combined state and local taxes and $2.5 billion in federal taxes. These tax dollars are essential for supporting our public schools, social programs, and local infrastructure. Undocumented immigrants do more than just spend and pay taxes. They're also a driving force for entrepreneurship. In Chicago, 9.1% of entrepreneurs are undocumented, even though they only make up 5.1% of the metro area's overall population. Bottom line, raids targeting undocumented immigrants aren't going to make our communities safer. Research shows that undocumented immigrants don't drive up crime rates. Instead, these crackdowns shrink the workforce and slow down business activities, hurting job opportunities for everyone, whether foreign-born or US-born. Perhaps most damaging of all is the climate of fear these raids create, making all immigrants feel less safe in their own communities. The resistance. Note: not everyone agrees to the president. Chicago's political leaders are supporting local residents who are standing up against the federal government's mass deportation efforts. They promise to hold the line and push back every single time. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has encountered resistance from local groups that help undocumented immigrants as its agents conduct operations in the city as part of a nationwide crackdown, according to the Chicago Tribune. Nonprofits in Chicago have created Facebook groups, apps, and distributed flyers with tips on how to avoid ICE detention. Progressive political leaders are applauding these acts of defiance, as ICE has reportedly detained around 100 migrants so far. The actions from the White House are based on xenophobic, nativist, and racist lies. We must hold the line and push back every single time, just as we have done before, said Repuelo Jesus Chuy Garcia at an event at Malcolm X College on Wednesday. People are exercising their rights. Tom Homan, Trump's border czar, criticized Chicago and other sanctuary cities, claiming they hinder efforts to deport criminal undocumented migrants. Sanctuary cities make it very hard to arrest criminals. For example, in Chicago, they are well informed on how to evade ICE. I've seen many pamphlets from various organizations. They call it Know Your Rights. I see it as a guide to escape arrest. If there's a warrant for your arrest, they tell you how to hide from ICE, Homan stated in an interview. Illinois State Representative Delia Ramirez views those opposing Trump's mass deportation plan as courageous. We have shown them that we are brave. We have shown them that we are organized. And we have shown them that they will not break us, she said. Days earlier, the day the raids kicked off, there was a noticeable drop in customer traffic at the restaurants and outlet malls in Little Village. Definitely not what you'd expect on a weekend afternoon. The usual street vendors selling fruit and elotes were nowhere to be seen as volunteers. Diego Morales, 33, Lisbeth Roman, 30, Mimi Guiracocha, 32, and Lisa Cho, 31, went around distributing Know Your Rights pamphlets. Out of 150 homes they visited, only a handful of people opened their doors. For several days, activists, non-profit workers, and lawyers had been running Know Your Rights workshops and providing legal advice in neighborhoods with large immigrant communities. They also organized rapid response teams, which are groups of local volunteers who work to verify the many rumors about immigration enforcement circulating on social media, document raids with photos or videos, and jot down the license plate numbers of vehicles they suspect belong to immigration officials. But the resistance met its own resistance. On that Sunday afternoon, most people were tight-lipped, except for a group of men braving the cold outside. One of them, speaking quickly in Spanish, praised Trump for finally taking action on illegal immigration. He wouldn't share his name but claimed to have come from Germany and said he voted for Trump. Another man, dressed in cowboy boots and a hat, expressed that he doesn't think people should be protesting in the streets, insisting, "We're human beings, not animals." Instead, he suggested they should write letters to the president. He also chose not to reveal his name. Economic hit. Chicago's economy is a mosaic built on a diverse labor force and vibrant cultural contributions, much of which comes from its immigrant communities. Undocumented immigrants, often at the forefront of industries such as construction, hospitality, and retail, have helped shape the city's economic and social fabric. If this scenario continues for the rest of the year, where a mass deportation takes place in the entire 2025, the removal of these communities could trigger significant economic shifts. Let's explore the potential ramifications such a policy might have on Chicago's economic landscape, from immediate labor market disruptions to long-term fiscal and cultural impacts. Labor market disruptions. A critical pillar of Chicago's economic engine is its labor market, to which undocumented immigrants have long contributed by filling roles that require flexibility and hard work. Their sudden absence could lead to significant challenges. For instance, industries such as construction, food services, and maintenance may face acute labor shortages as employers accustomed to a steady influx of workers struggle to fill positions. This shortfall could result in project delays or drive a shift toward more automated solutions. Moreover, with a reduced labor pool, wages in low-skill, labor-intensive sectors might rise as employers compete for fewer workers. While higher wages could benefit some individuals, they may also increase operating costs for businesses, ultimately pushing prices higher for consumers. Additionally, the removal of immigrant workers means a loss of unique skills and adaptability that have contributed to workforce diversity and overall productivity. Consumer demand and market dynamics. The economic impact of mass deportation extends well beyond the labor market, affecting consumer behavior and business activity. A significant reduction in the population directly translates to fewer consumers, which can dampen spending across various sectors, from restaurants and retail outlets to services dependent on a robust consumer base. The resulting decrease in spending might trigger a cascading effect throughout the local supply chain, undermining business revenues and overall economic vibrancy. Furthermore, many small enterprises in Chicago are either owned or operated by undocumented immigrants. The forced departure of these entrepreneurs could lead to business closures, job losses, and a diminished spirit of innovation that has historically fueled local economic growth. In addition, a shrinking population could lower the demand for housing, potentially resulting in falling property values and rental rates in traditionally immigrant-populated neighborhoods, thereby affecting homeowners and reducing the city's tax revenues. Fiscal and public finance implications. Municipal budgets and public finances are closely tied to the economic contributions of all residents, including undocumented immigrants. A mass deportation could lead to a noticeable decrease in tax revenue. Despite their legal status, many undocumented immigrants contribute to the local economy through sales taxes, rent payments that indirectly support property taxes, and other fees. Their absence would shrink the tax base and place additional strain on public services and infrastructure funding. While some advocates argue that reducing the number of undocumented immigrants might lower public expenditures on social services, any short-term savings could be outweighed by long-term losses in economic dynamism and reduced tax inflows. Moreover, the city might be forced to reallocate budgets to address emerging issues, such as increased unemployment benefits for displaced workers or investments in workforce retraining programs, which could divert funds from other critical areas like education or public safety. Broader economic and social considerations. Beyond measurable labor and fiscal impacts, the cultural and social consequences of a mass deportation could profoundly reshape Chicago. The city's identity is deeply intertwined with its multicultural heritage, and the removal of immigrant communities would erode the cultural diversity that enriches its social life and drives sectors such as tourism, the arts, and culinary innovation. Immigrant communities are also known for their entrepreneurial spirit, with their networks and creative energy spurring new business ventures and technological advancements. A sudden exodus of these communities could stifle future economic growth and diminish Chicago's competitive edge. Additionally, immigrant communities help build robust social support networks that enhance community resilience. Their removal might weaken social cohesion, leading to a more fragmented society where collaborative problem-solving becomes more challenging, particularly during economic downturns. Although no historical event perfectly mirrors a mass deportation of undocumented immigrants in a major US city before this chaos of the year, historical and international examples provide valuable insights. Past demographic shifts, whether through migration waves or policy-induced changes, have demonstrated that abrupt changes in a region's population can lead to economic shocks, including reduced productivity and slower economic growth. Comparative studies indicate that cities embracing inclusivity and diversity tend to enjoy stronger economic performance. In contrast, policies that abruptly curtail immigrant participation have often led to short-term disruptions and longer-term economic challenges, serving as a cautionary tale for similar actions in Chicago. If this continues, it would likely trigger far-reaching economic consequences. In the immediate aftermath, the city could face labor shortages, rising wages in certain sectors, and a decline in consumer spending, all of which would strain local businesses. Fiscal challenges, such as reduced tax revenue and the need for budgetary reallocations, could further complicate the economic recovery. Beyond these tangible metrics, the cultural and social fabric that has long defined Chicago's vibrancy and innovation would suffer. While mass deportation might be pursued for various political or ideological reasons, the potential economic fallout could undermine the very foundations of Chicago's sustained growth and prosperity. A more balanced approach that considers both economic vitality and the complex social dynamics of immigration may better serve the city in the long run. What has happened so far? Business and industry leaders in Chicago are expressing concern about a potential backlash against immigrant workers following a recent wave of targeted ICE actions, accompanied by visits from federal agents, top Trump officials, and media personality Dr. Phil McGraw. Although no restaurant employees have yet been arrested in the area, anxiety is growing among employers like Sam Toyer of the Illinois Restaurant Association. Toyer advised that if ICE does show up at workplaces, employers should verify that agents have a warrant and comply with legal requests for I-9 employment authorization forms. He also urged that workers be connected with legal aid if needed. Nationwide, while ICE reported hundreds of arrests over the weekend, numbers comparable to its average daily arrests, business groups are warning that aggressive immigration enforcement, including potential mass deportations, could severely disrupt the economy. The American Business Immigration Coalition, representing more than 1,700 business leaders, estimates that mass deportations could cost up to $88 billion in 1 year by worsening labor shortages and inflating prices. Many industries, from restaurants and agriculture to construction and healthcare, depend on immigrant workers, with several business owners emphasizing that immigrants and refugees are vital to their operations and the nation's economic vitality. Local business owners are also observing the effects of fear among workers and customers, with reports of reduced patronage and worker absenteeism linked to uncertainty over immigration enforcement. In response, industry figures are calling on the government to pursue sensible immigration reform that secures borders while providing legal pathways for law-abiding immigrants to contribute to the economy. Deportations outside Chicago. Since he took office on January 20th, President Donald Trump has rolled out a series of executive orders focused on immigration, paving the way for a major crackdown on undocumented immigrants in the US. With over 21 actions under his belt, Trump is working to change various aspects of the US immigration system, including how migrants are processed and deported. The White House has been showcasing some of these efforts. Recently, the new White House press secretary shared photos of deportation flights being carried out with military cargo planes. While Trump has promised mass deportations and extensive arrests, it's still unclear how much of his plan is actually being implemented. A central aspect of Trump's immigration strategy is the expulsion of undocumented immigrants from the United States, coupled with his commitment to mass deportations. To support this initiative, the Defense Department has revealed plans to use military aircraft to deport over 5,000 individuals who have been detained by Border Patrol in San Diego and El Paso, Texas. According to ICE data, more than 1,000 individuals were deported or sent back on Thursday, which was just the fourth day of Trump's presidency. Tom Homan, the border czar, has promised that the rate of deportations will keep increasing. Over the weekend, Trump's deportation flights led to a brief diplomatic issue when Colombia's government denied landing rights to 2 military planes carrying deported Colombians. Colombian President Gustavo Petro expressed his disapproval, arguing that the US can't treat Colombian migrants like criminals, and emphasized the need for them to be treated with dignity. Nevertheless, the Colombian government seemed to back down after the Trump administration hinted at potential economic consequences, including punitive tariffs. Additionally, Trump has reinstated and broadened expedited deportations of undocumented migrants, bringing back a policy from his first term that had been previously overturned by Biden. Expedited removals were previously restricted to areas within 100 miles, 160 kilometers, of U.S. international borders and applied only to individuals who did not seek asylum or failed to present a credible case. Under Trump's changes, these removals can now take place anywhere in the country, affecting undocumented migrants who cannot prove they have resided in the U.S. for over 2 years. How's Mexico border at the moment? The Remain in Mexico policy is making a comeback, and it's even tougher this time around. If you're seeking asylum, you'll need to stay in Mexico while your claim is processed. The goal is to deter people from entering the country and making questionable asylum requests just to gain entry. On Wednesday, the Pentagon revealed that an additional 1,500 active-duty troops will be sent to the southern U.S. border. This new deployment adds to the existing 2,500 active-duty personnel already there, resulting in a 60% increase in military presence, as confirmed by officials. Acting Defense Secretary Robert Salas stated that these troops will be using helicopters to support Border Patrol agents with surveillance. They will also help build barriers to stop migrants from crossing into the U.S. Salas indicated that this is just the beginning, implying that more troops could be sent in the future. Officials also noted that additional border enforcement missions are being planned, though they did not provide further details. Biden similarly deployed active-duty troops to the border, primarily assigning them administrative roles to support Border Patrol operations ahead of the expiration of Title 42, a public health order that had been used to quickly expel migrants during the COVID-19 pandemic. Border crossings saw a sharp decline during Biden's final year in office. In December 2024, the last full month of his presidency, authorities recorded approximately 47,330 migrant apprehensions, down significantly from a peak of nearly 250,000 in December 2023. These figures are lower than the monthly averages during Trump's first term before the COVID-19 pandemic. For instance, in May 2019, Border Patrol agents recorded 132,800 migrant encounters. Migrant suspension. Through an executive order, Trump has halted the entry of all undocumented migrants into the U.S., directing Border Patrol agents to deny entry without allowing asylum hearings. Previously, migrants at the U.S. border had the legal right to request asylum. However, in June 2024, the Biden administration also issued an executive order that temporarily limited asylum claims for individuals who did not arrive at an official port of entry or schedule an appointment via CBP One, a mobile app. By September, these restrictions were made even stricter. Trump also ended the U.S. refugee resettlement program. Under Biden in 2024, the U.S. welcomed over 100,000 refugees, marking the highest number since 1995. Additionally, he terminated a significant Biden-era initiative that permitted up to 30,000 migrants each month from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela to enter the U.S. for humanitarian reasons. Furthermore, Trump has reinstated the contentious Remain in Mexico policy from his first term, which mandates that non-Mexican asylum seekers wait in Mexico while their claims are processed in U.S. courts. This policy previously impacted around 71,000 individuals during his first presidency. Immigration advocates have consistently criticized this policy, claiming it leaves migrants vulnerable in Mexico for extended periods, often putting them at risk from criminal gangs and unsafe living conditions. With an estimated backlog of 3.6 million cases in US immigration courts, many migrants are uncertain whether their cases will still be heard, especially as processing delays stretch for years. Trump has also dismissed several top immigration court officials since taking office, a move that could further impact the handling of pending cases. Following Trump's return to office, one of the first changes was the discontinuation of the CBP One smartphone app, a tool that had enabled migrants to schedule appointments with US Border Patrol agents. Initially launched by the Biden administration to facilitate a structured and safe entry process for those fleeing persecution, the app's termination has left nearly 30,000 individuals in Mexico who had previously arranged appointments stranded. CBS reported US government data indicated that about 270,000 migrants were waiting on the Mexican side of the border for appointments via the app prior to its removal. The shutdown has sparked considerable distress among migrants, many of whom endured lengthy, challenging journeys and months of waiting for their scheduled meetings. Advocacy groups contend that cancelling the app has eliminated a vital, orderly pathway for seeking protection in the US, prompting the American Civil Liberties Union, ACLU, to file a legal challenge against its closure. Chicago without the migrants. Chicago has long been recognized as a city of immigrants, a melting pot where people from diverse backgrounds have contributed to its rich cultural fabric and economic dynamism. Among these are undocumented immigrants who, despite their legal status, have become an integral part of Chicago's communities and labor force. Let's take a look at the multifaceted contributions of undocumented immigrants to Chicago and discuss the potential economic, social, and cultural impacts of their absence. Will Chicago survive without undocumented immigrants? Like mentioned, undocumented immigrants are often employed in sectors that face chronic labor shortages. In Chicago, industries such as hospitality, construction, food services, and healthcare support frequently rely on the labor provided by undocumented workers. These individuals help fill jobs that are sometimes less attractive to native-born workers due to low wages or challenging working conditions. Their labor not only supports business operations but also contributes to consumer demand. Again, studies conducted in various US cities have shown that immigrants, including those who are undocumented, tend to have a net positive impact on local economies. They pay sales taxes, contribute to local businesses as consumers, and even pay income taxes through systems like the ITIN program. Removing this segment of the workforce could lead to significant labor shortages, disrupt supply chains in key sectors, and result in reduced economic output. The diminished consumer base could affect local businesses that rely on the spending power of all residents, potentially leading to a slowdown in economic growth. Chicago's identity is closely tied to its diverse communities. Neighborhoods such as Pilsen, Little Village, and others are celebrated for their cultural richness, which includes art, cuisine, festivals, and community traditions rooted in immigrant histories. Undocumented immigrants have played an essential role in nurturing this cultural mosaic. Their contributions have not only enriched Chicago's social fabric, but have also fostered innovation, resilience, and community solidarity. The removal of undocumented immigrants could result in a loss of cultural vibrancy and social cohesion. For many residents, cultural diversity is a source of pride and a driver of tourism and local entrepreneurship. Additionally, many community organizations, advocacy groups, and local businesses are founded and run by immigrants, further emphasizing the interconnectedness of these populations with the overall health of the city. It is important to recognize that the notion of removing undocumented immigrants is largely ambitious in the past and would involve profound legal, social, and economic challenges. Immigration enforcement on such a scale would not only be logistically complex, but would also have significant humanitarian implications. The sudden departure of a large portion of the workforce would likely force businesses to seek alternatives, such as increasing wages to attract legally documented workers or investing in automation, a transition that could disrupt existing economic relationships and community networks. Moreover, the contributions of undocumented immigrants extend beyond just labor. Many are entrepreneurs who have started small businesses that contribute to local economies and create jobs for others. Their absence could lead to a reduction in the entrepreneurial energy that has historically spurred innovation in Chicago. The question of survival. Defining survival for a city as large and diverse as Chicago is challenging. While it is unlikely that the city would cease to exist without undocumented immigrants, the term survival here may refer to the city's ability to maintain its economic vibrancy, cultural diversity, and social cohesion. The removal of undocumented immigrants would almost certainly lead to significant disruptions in these areas, possibly diminishing Chicago's competitive edge as a major metropolitan hub. Over time, such changes could affect the city's overall quality of life, economic prosperity, and global reputation as a diverse and inclusive urban center. Chicago's status as a vibrant, economically dynamic city is deeply intertwined with the contributions of all its residents, including undocumented immigrants. These individuals fill crucial roles in the labor market, enrich the city's cultural landscape, and contribute to its economic vitality. While it is difficult to predict every outcome of their absence, the evidence suggests that the removal of undocumented immigrants would have substantial negative impacts on Chicago's economy, social fabric, and cultural identity. Rather than asking whether Chicago can survive without these communities, a more productive discussion might focus on how comprehensive immigration reform and inclusive policies can enhance the contributions of all residents to the city's future prosperity. Chicago is not as loud and vibrant this year. What do you think of the ongoing mass deportations? Share your thoughts below, and we'll see you in the next video.